Dotemu continues their streak of excellent games with Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, one of my most anticipated titles of the year. The publisher of Streets of Rage 4, Shredder's Revenge, and the upcoming Absalom and Marvel Cosmic Invasion has teamed up with the Game Kitchen, the company behind the hit 2D Metroidvania Blasphemous, to create the best 2D action platformer in ages. It's welcoming to newcomers to the genre and full of brutal old-school challenge for the hardcore. Ninja Gaiden is a series with a long tradition of being difficult as hell. The original NES games were legendary for their punishing enemy composition, environmental hazards, and unforgiving respawns, and the 3D titles are considered some of the most insanely hard mainstream games of all time. If a new Ninja Gaiden doesn't offer a high degree of difficulty, it's offensive to the fan base. So even though I love the game, let's get something bad out of the way immediately. Ninja Gaiden Ragebound locks the hard difficulty behind a normal mode completion. I think this is a huge mistake, because the normal campaign is a total joke, and I don't say this as some kind of action game pro, I say this as objective reality. Not being able to play hard mode is going to turn off some old school fans. First, you take very little damage. Second, there are health pickups. Third, the various checkpoints in each level partially refill your health when you find them. Fourth, upon death, checkpoints fully restore your health. Fifth, you have an invincible dash that lets you fly past a high amount of enemy encounters. And sixth, you unlock various talismans that make the game even easier by giving you the option to regenerate health, earn strong attacks more easily, etc. Here's a section of a level on normal showing that nothing means anything. Now, the decision to lock the hard difficulty behind a full normal playthrough would usually result in me being very upset. However, remember I mentioned the talismans? Well, there are also negative talismans that make the game significantly harder. You can make it very old school by having to restart the entire level upon death. You can make it so checkpoints don't refill health at all, and the one I chose for myself was taking triple damage. I'm gonna recommend to everyone watching this video, if you're looking for a thoughtful, challenging experience, choose this talisman. Dying in 3 hits makes you pay attention to every enemy composition. It makes you regret your bad decisions. You need to be cautious of enemies jumping onto the screen. You need to patiently target hypercharged enemies so you get your charge attack for the one-hit kill. And it makes you learn boss patterns so you actually feel like you defeated them. Equip this talisman after World 2, because it is not fun to die so easily during the motorcycle sections. Once you start 3-1, put it on and it's a different game. I cannot recommend this strongly enough. Play using triple damage so you are actually held accountable for your actions. I died hundreds of times. I got stuck in boss fights for half an hour, and that's not a complaint. I was humiliated in many situations, and every death reminded me to pay attention, to learn, to plan, and to stop doing stupid shit and panicking. It was great. If you prefer a breezy, carefree experience of just running around mashing buttons, I'm not judging you for it. Have fun, it's fine. But for anyone looking for an experience where you actually have to learn the game to pass it, please follow my advice. So this difficulty issue is what I find really interesting, because I always want a game to offer me a first-time experience that demands I learn how to play. I don't need it to be impossibly difficult, but at least don't let me play like a jackass so I can ignore what's supposed to be fun about your game. That's why I'm a fan of offering multiple difficulties at the start, or in some cases just offering a default selection that is tuned to require skillful play. For many, that would be a game like Dark Souls or Sekiro. For me, that would be Sifu or Super Mario 64. Challenge matters. If a game doesn't punish you for playing stupid, some people are gonna play stupid and miss out on the fun mechanics, because the mechanics don't mean anything to their survival. In a controversial moment, I had this view of Bayonetta, because if you don't care about ranking systems, and I typically don't, Bayonetta's starting difficulty is laughably easy because of how easy it is to mash and how checkpoints fully restore your health. I was frustrated as a newcomer that there wasn't a higher difficulty available at the start. It's not like it's unheard of to offer this to a new player. God of War games start with a hard mode available, Ninja Gaiden is hard right away, Devil May Cry and especially Devil May Cry 3 smack you around for playing stupid. Why was Bayonetta letting me play so poorly? And when I finished Bayonetta, I unlocked hard mode and said, finally, something to push me to play better. I felt like I didn't learn anything before, and now hopefully I have to. But hard mode in Bayonetta was a remix of the game that was tuned for people who knew the game mechanics. You can't play hard in Bayonetta without knowing what you're doing, without knowing dodge offset and enemy attack patterns. And that was my issue with Bayonetta. Not that hard mode requires mastery, I think that's great, but that normal mode was so easy that I could beat it without learning anything, and therefore it poorly prepared me to take on hard mode. Not everyone cares about ranks, okay? And I wish there was a difficulty between the two to bridge the gap. I like Bayonetta, it's fun, I enjoyed learning how to actually play it, but I disagree with how it presents itself. Why am I talking about Bayonetta? Well, it's because we have a similar situation in Ragebound. The default forced difficulty of Ragebound is very easy to beat without really learning the game. And when you unlock hard mode, you're not going to be ready for it, because hard mode is a big remix of the entire game that throws so much more at you. Boss fights are at times extremely different and brutal. But Ragebound has something that Bayonetta doesn't, the negative talismans. Using triple damage, or something else, to transform normal mode is a great way to learn the game, and go into hard mode prepared to take on the challenge. In most cases, I would say, just let me play hard mode from the start, don't force me to play normal first. And I do think that hard mode should be unlocked from the beginning, but I understand the argument behind locking it for later since it's such a drastically different experience from normal. It's another game. And what makes me okay with it is the talismans. If I had not been able to make the game harder, I may not have even finished it because it would have been painfully boring. But here's the really interesting bit. I actually prefer the game on normal with the triple damage talisman. Hard mode is about constant oppression. Way more enemies, more annoying enemy variants, more hazards, all that. It's fun, but I prefer the slower pace of normal just with the harsher punishment for mistakes that comes from triple damage. And it's really cool that I'm able to find such different balances in this game. A lot of people are going to prefer default hard mode, some are going to be like me and prefer modifying normal, and others are just going to enjoy the much less challenging default normal playthrough just taking in the adventure. It all works pretty well. Not perfectly, because it's up to the player to modify the experience, but at least they can. I ended up having a great time. From the moment I started triple damage in World 3, Ninja Gaiden Ragebound shot up to one of my favorite games of the year. If I were a bigger fan, I'd probably go for high ranks on every level. I tried it for a few of them, and it was cool. It's just not what I personally care about so much in video games. I'm just happy that Ragebound offers a solid amount of challenge for people who don't need to see an S rank at the end of every level to play the game well. So this isn't really a review, right? I'm just talking about challenge. That's fine, not every video needs to be a review, but I can talk real quick about some other feelings I have about the game. The art style is nice, cool effects. I like some of the cinematic transitions between stages. I like most of the enemies and how bullshit they can be in certain situations. Except for the sewer spiky blob things, they can fuck off. I like the hypercharge mechanic a lot, it's really fun to manage when you're playing on high difficulty or with triple damage. The music is awesome. The story is fine. There's demons and a portal to hell and the CIA and something is fine. The sections where you play as Karimi are hit or miss for me. Sometimes I really enjoyed the timed platforming challenges, but other times I was annoyed that the standard action was interrupted to play one of her sections. The motorcycle sections I don't like at all. The boss fights, 90% of them I think are excellent. My favorite might be the big red guy at the end of level 3.
Mayo, that's literally the worst boss fight in the game.
Okay, fine, whatever. It's terrible, I'm sorry. And although I think this game probably has one of the best train levels ever seen in a 2D platformer, the boss at the end wasn't particularly fun to fight.
Mayo, that is the best boss fight in the game, you fucking...
Okay, fine, it's great, alright? How about we talk about the ranking system? There's a lot of stuff that contributes to the end of level rank. Number of enemies killed, the highest count you reached in a combo, whether or not you fell in an insta-death pit, how you killed a boss, and the higher rank you get, it doesn't really mean anything besides unlocking new items in the shop. That's nice, I appreciate it, but it isn't a great motivation for completing the challenges because the shop items don't feel that important to experiment with compared to the Messenger. Yes, it's time to talk about the Messenger, the 2018 love letter to Ninja Gaiden that massively evolved the original's formula, becoming possibly the best action platformer of all time. The upgrades in the Messenger were all so attractive. They kept me always wanting to collect more orbs, which led me into so many fun platforming challenges. Ragebound, on the other hand, only lets me have a few of my store purchases equipped, so once I found something comfortable, I didn't care too much about unlocking more, and finding more tokens to be able to purchase them. I ended up with a lot of credits I just didn't use because all I could do was buy stuff to switch out with other things. There was no sense of progression like there was in the Messenger, and I didn't feel like I was unlocking things that really changed the game. And of course we can't mention the Messenger without saying that it absolutely had an influence on Ragebound. The Messenger's mechanic where you got a second jump after attacking blew that game wide open, and turned it into a very unique experience. Attacking and jumping was a skill to be learned and practiced, opening up so many interesting possibilities in combat and platforming. Ragebound has a simplified version which is just jump bouncing. It's far less interesting and far easier to perform, leading to some pretty serious cheese against some of the enemies that really doesn't require much execution. Actually, the more I think about it, the more I prefer the Messenger. It's more ambitious, it has deeper mechanics, I even like the music better. It's still one of my favorites of all time, but that doesn't mean Ragebound doesn't do it for me. I had a blast with Ragebound. I'm only capable of evaluating it through the perspective of a casual fan that also loves to be challenged. If you're looking for deeper analysis through the perspective of mastery, you're gonna have to wait for the Electric Underground or someone who's really dedicated to the genre. But here, Mayo says huge recommendation. I hope it does well, and you'll be seeing it in my best of the year list.